The Norris Group would like to thank the following platinum partners: HousingWire, Coach Fullerton, Coldwell Banker Town and Country, Property Radar, the Apartment Owners Association, the San Diego Creative Real Estate Investors Association, InvestClub, Brisas Escrow, MVT Productions, Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, Realty 411, and White House Catering.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance. Thank you for being here, and it works every time. I'm Aaron Norris. I am Vice President of Norris Group and MC for a very short time. We've got a live stream happening via the HousingWire Face feed, so we do need to stay on track today. First, I want to thank our team. We've got Robin, Vicky, Craig, Holly, Donna, Joey, Don, Mike, and Rich who helped out today. Thank you. So, you may have not heard, this is our 10th year. I've been spending, thank you. I've been reminiscing, looking at old pictures all the way back to 2008 when we didn't hire a professional photographer, but we launched this event during the real estate recession with 3 goals in mind. Invite friends throughout the real estate industry to celebrate the work that we do, even during rough times. Invite thought leaders to the table that shape our industry to share their insights on what is ahead, and of course, to raise money for charity. Cancer has been the focus for the last 10 years, and tonight is no different. And as it has become a tradition, will you please stand if you or somebody you know has dealt with cancer? And that's why we're here tonight. Thank you. The real estate nerdiness will begin soon enough, but a little business. Over the last 4 months together, I just found out tonight we raised over $80,000 tonight. That brings our 10-year total to over almost $750,000 to $780,000. So, if you're the special guest of a table who paid for your seat to be here tonight, you can still give. And if you're on the live stream, you can give as well. You'll find the link in the program on the website at isurviverealestate.com. Under the video tab, you'll find the direct link to the Make-A-Wish to where you can make a tax-deductible donation. And 100% actually goes. So we pay for the event, so 100% of every sponsorship and every person who paid for a ticket actually goes to Make-A-Wish in St. Jude. Okay, I do want to say thank you to Lee Aiken with InvestClub and Sabrina Gottlieb with LA South RIA. They went the extra mile this year and were our top 2 fundraisers. Do you want to wave, Lee? I didn't see Sabrina. Is she here? Okay. So a little bit, our efforts tonight benefit 2 important organizations that help children with life-threatening illnesses. Please welcome Odette Gutierrez with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital to the stage as she shares a little bit more about St. Jude. We'll have her come up and we'll play this short video. It's the St. Jude video.
Glittering premiere at the Chicago Theater for Warner Brothers, I'll See You in My Dreams. A real dream has come true, for this benefit premiere launches a drive for a new hospital sponsored by the film star Danny Thomas, here arriving with his family. Years ago, Danny vowed he'd build a hospital if he ever became famous. $32,000 are subscribed, the first of $1 million Danny Thomas tells friends he'll raise for the St. Jude's Hospital of his dreams.
They said it couldn't be done. They said that it was a task which would break my heart. They said it was impossible. At this very moment, as I speak to you, in the city of Memphis, Tennessee, there is being constructed a hospital in the form of a star.
There it is, in concrete, glass, and steel, to offer help to all the children of the world, regardless of race, creed, or economic status.
You and I have vowed that we will do everything in our power, spiritually, physically, mentally, and financially, to bring about the defeat of these catastrophic diseases. We're going to begin with leukemia, and by God's grace, after defeating it, go on to other diseases. That little tiny building has led the world in advancements in pediatric science and clinical care, and now it's going to rise up. You will bring it to the fore through an organization called ALSAC. If I were to die tomorrow, I now know why I was born.
While we're sitting here making this video, there's a family that's walking through the front doors on a Friday afternoon, and they're at St. Jude. When we came to St. Jude, I asked the doctor, "Can you treat my child?" And he said, "No. We're going to cure him."
Thank you. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here every year. And as some of you may know, September is actually Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So thank you to everyone who's wearing a little gold pin. And thank you to all of you for your generous support for St. Jude and the fight against childhood cancer. Every year, approximately 16,000 parents in the U.S. will hear the words, "Your child has cancer." And unfortunately, cancer remains the #1 cause of death by disease in children. But as you saw in the video, a place like St. Jude exists to bring hope to some of these families, to help bridge that gap in the survival rate of pediatric cancer. And one of the great things about St. Jude is that doctors and researchers, because of events like this, have the financial freedom to not worry about whether they're going to have the money that's needed to treat a child, but they will do whatever they can to cure that child, and it's a beautiful thing. And not only that, but no family ever receives a bill, not for their treatment, their travel, their housing, or their food, so that they can worry, all they have to worry about is helping their child live. And this all exists because of Danny Thomas and his dream and, his inspiration to others. Danny Thomas actually had a drawing of the hospital, as he talked about, in the shape of a star on a cocktail napkin. And he used to go from state to state before the hospital was funded to talk about his dream, to talk about his vision, And it's just, because of his passion that he was able to build a hospital that now has helped bring survival rates from 20% when the hospital first opened to more than 80% today. And I think that similarly, Aaron, I think your passion is your passion and the support of the Norris Group. I think, having that vision and that dream 10 years ago, who would have thought you would have raised $750,000 for charity? So I think that speaks a lot, to your heart, and, the fact that, you're here doing this, but not only you're doing this and we're having such a great time, but you're doing this for charity. So thank you so much to you, to the Norris Group, to all the event sponsors, and to all of you who support St. Jude.
Next up, we have a board member of Make-A-Wish who's in real estate, actually, and here for the first time. While Michael Hickman is coming up, let's show a video of Make-A-Wish.
I like to play soldiers.
You like to play soldiers?
And the little armies.
Mm-hmm.
And play tag.
You like to play tag? What do you like to play tag with?
Where's my phone?
Every day. Every day. We have the garage locked. They're just waiting for me to get home. Once I have the garage opener open, here they all come out.
They run out like if they're having captive in there. When first my sister used to babysit him, so she saw on his left eye the like a white grayish film covering right here, and I took him to his pediatrician, and he said, "Oh no," he looked, "No, there's nothing wrong with him. He's perfectly fine. I don't see anything wrong." I go, "Doctor, but you're looking for it. You can't look for it. You just see it depending how the light's reflecting it." And he goes, "No, he's fine."
Here comes the car! Car!
So I made an appointment with an optometrist. And then from there, that's when they told me that he might have retinoblastoma. And I'm like, I've never heard of that. What is retinoblastoma? He said, oh, it could be a tumor in his eye.
It's hard. I mean, I'll go in the room and yell, and I would stay away from her because she would get me going. It's just hard. It's knowing that he's going to lose his eye.
What could I see him being?
A soldier.
A soldier. That's his dream. Since he was little, he's wanted to be a soldier.
Good to go. Hey, my name is First Lieutenant Campbell. I'm the operations officer here for the battalion. I've got Captain Rivera. He's our executive officer for the battalion. And we've got a bunch of Marines here that want to show you a good time and see what it's like to be an Amtrak. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for coming out. You're one brave dude. All right, brothers. What they're going to do is they're going to drive past here and they're going to salute us as they go by in honor of you being here today. So it's a pretty cool thing. I've never been passed and reviewed, and I don't think many people here ever have. So you're getting kind of the special treatment today.
We slept like dogs down by the fireside. Awoke to the fog were all around us. The boom of summertime.
How you doing there, Marine? Hi, pleasure to meet you. General Collins. Try it. Yeah, there you go.
Steady as the stars in the wood. So happy heart.
I don't see any rank on you. So what we want to do is we want to promote you. That way all Marines have to salute you when they see you. Congratulations there, General. General for the day. Face is yours.
Just to bless the morning.
Give me all your money. I'm one of the martial arts instructor trainers that works out of this facility. We're going to go ahead and take you back to one of our mat rooms, and we're going to do a little demo for this guy. Now, is he able to participate in any kind of activity?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay, awesome. You're going to throw a hook like this, okay? There you go. Good. It looks like this. I'm here. Now, you're going to drop, and you're going to come up. Good job.
When they said that this was coming up, I let everybody know that not only do I want to participate, I had some ideas that we wanted to go over the top and make sure we do everything possible. It makes you feel good at the end of the day that we help just a little bit the challenges that these individuals and the families have. Each story is different, so helping any family makes us feel good.
You like the dogs? Yeah? Tell you what, you like to pet Jerry? You want to come down and pet him?
Just to bless the morning.
See him spraying the water? So what sometimes we do, when you're driving up next to your buddy and you want to get him wet, spray him with the water in the back. It's kind of funny, huh?
My daughter wanted me to get this to you, and the coin's from me.
Living exactly what he wants to do, and that's the beauty of Make-A-Wish. They find out what the child really wants, and it shows. This is what Jorge had wanted. So with the Marines here, what they've spread out in front of us, the full day, he's going to sleep well tonight. I know I will.
Hopefully you can see. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. It has been my, oh my gosh, my distinct honor and pleasure to serve on the board of directors for Make-A-Wish. I just concluded my term as chairman of the board of Make-A-Wish. And what that allows me to do is not just see the corporate side of things and the fundraising side of things, but actually to spend time with the most important part of Make-A-Wish, and that's the kids. And I'm just going to tell you a couple stories. And most of us know that Make-A-Wish is about, helping children and granting their wish for medically eligible children. And we also know that the mission of Make-A-Wish is about hope, strength, and joy. But what you don't know, and what I'm here to tell you, is the ripple effect of what happens when the power of a wish strikes a family, strikes a young person, and it has an incredible, incredible ripple effect. For example, in my tenure as the chairman of the board, I had the opportunity to meet the mother of the original Make-A-Wish child. Christopher was 8 years old, and he had leukemia, and he had always wished to be a highway patrolman in Arizona. That's where he grew up. Our headquarters for Make-A-Wish is now in Phoenix, and there was a group of highway patrolmen that came together, and without their superiors knowing it, they took him out in a car, got him a uniform, took him for a ride in a helicopter, without their superiors knowing it, of course. Can you imagine? Hey, we're flying overhead, don't worry about it. And it was a great story. Christopher, from that day forward, they came back after granting Christopher his wish, and they started an organization called Make-A-Wish, and they all took money out of their pocket 35 years ago, and they put $37.12 on the table. And that's how Make-A-Wish got started. Christopher died a few days later. Unfortunately, he passed away and became a wish angel, the first wish angel. That's what we call them when we do lose a child. Another story that's really, now the guys in the audience, you can relate to this being a general for a day. How cool would that be with Jorge, right? I'm just going to read to you a couple of the things that Jorge got to do. Okay, he not only did he get his uniform, he got to go to the simulator for a helicopter, rode in a helicopter, had lunch hosted by the general and his wife. He toured an airplane, rode in a tank, and literally had the time of his life. Michael Rapaz, who was chairman of the board at the time, got to experience that firsthand. And for him, it was a life-changing event. I know that. What I've had the recent pleasure of enjoying is, you may have seen this on ESPN. We do a lot of work on ESPN. And there was a young gentleman, a young man, Ray, who is in Santa Ana. And in Santa Ana, kind of the south end of Santa Ana, he had always wished to meet Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Most of us know who that is, right? Yes. So what he did was we surprised him with ESPN that particular day. He had been told a year before when he went to get fitted for his helmet for Pop Warner, because he loved football, that there was something wrong. He had a pain in his head, and it turned out, of course, that he had needless to say, a brain tumor. And at that point in time, he could not play football anymore. The doctors told him, "You're done with football." So, lo and behold, we take ESPN out. We are there with him and call the whole team in, and we say, Ray, we have a surprise for you. You're going to see the Dallas Cowboys tomorrow. And I don't know if any of you saw this on TV, but if you have a chance to watch it and get the true power of a wish. See, what you don't get with this is, and by the way, did he have the time of his life? Oh yeah, he had his first press conference, standing in front of the Dallas Cowboys, right? He rode in Jerry Jones' helicopter, which the players are not even allowed to ride in. Do you think that was a cool day for Ray? Obviously the time of his life. But the ripple effect of what happened that day when he took a limousine to the airport, everybody in that limousine was affected. When the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders lined up and welcomed him to the Dallas Cowboys training center, okay, they were affected. Every single person in that organization was affected. And that's the power of a wish. So I can't thank you enough. I really can't. From the bottom of my heart, on behalf of the board of directors, which is a fantastic board. Disney is such a supporter of ours. We granted 335 wishes last year. Yes. Yes. But not only did we grant 335 wishes, that's the kind of the thing that you can talk about, but we assisted with 647 wishes from people outside of California that came to California for a wish. So we touched nearly 1,000 kids. And let me tell you something. One of the reasons I'm here tonight, and I'm passionate about it, I'm kind of pinch hitting for our CEO, is because we're only touching half of the kids that are out there that are medically eligible. And it's our duty and responsibility as part of the board members, or part of the board as members, to go out and find those kids and grant their wishes. So I want to thank you. Thank you. People like you, Aaron, I know that you may not want this sort of accolade, but people like you are rare. Yes. I too work in the real estate industry. I own a real estate company. Yes, I survived it. I don't know how we did, but we did it, right? You know, if we can survive that, we can do something like Make-A-Wish or St. Jude's, couldn't we? Absolutely. And so, my last comment, Aaron, is I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you're doing for these people in this room. Really. Shout out to you. That's worth a standing ovation. Really, come on. Well deserved. Now, Aaron did pay me to say that, but it's okay. All joking aside, I have not met Aaron until tonight, but I'm so impressed. And from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of Make-A-Wish, the entire chapter that we have in Orange County, all the way through to Nevada, I want to thank you. On behalf of our volunteers, our board of directors, and most importantly, the Wish kids that we're all here for. Thank you, and have a great evening. Thank you, sir. You gonna hang around?
Oh, embarrassing. No. Please make sure to visit our sponsors. Legacy is built, and each one of you is part of that legacy. I got the chance to go back all the way to 2008 and look at a lot of friends' faces around the room, and it means a lot from the bottom of my heart. If you're not in board service, get out there, serve our local community. A lot of the dollars we try to raise stays right here in California. That's important, but talent and time is just as important. So if you're not serving on a board, get out there, represent. With that, please silence your cell phones. Don't be that guy or gal. Doesn't mean you can't be on social media or check an email. We just want it on vibrate. If you are participating on social media, use the hashtag ISRE. And finally, if you're going to unwrap that hard candy in the most inappropriate time, unwrap it now. And if you're the neighbor who they decide to wait till later, you can elbow them my permission. With that, I am going to hand it over to my father. I've been blessed to be 12 years serving at his company. He's been a hard money lender, real estate investor, builder, and has built something that's been around for 20 years and hopefully 20 years more, Bruce Norris.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys very much. It meant a lot to me to watch you do that for Aaron too. It really did. Thank you. I'm going to tell a brief story about Aaron. He didn't know this was coming, but because you did that for him. I knew this kid's heart when he was about 10 years old. He was always trying out for plays, and he got a lead role. And I was working out in the weight room we had at home, and I was next to where his room was. And he was making call after call after call, and I thought, I wonder what that is. And normally, when you get the lead role, that's a big deal. He was calling each of his other people that had tried out, and a conversation would go like this. Oh, I only got to be, like a tree or something like that. And Aaron would go, oh, no, that's so cool. I was a tree a few years ago, and this is what we did. By the time he got done, he didn't call to brag on his part. He had garnered everybody in that play to be excited about theirs at 10. What he didn't know is I was sitting on the other side of that wall crying, which I still feel right now. That's who he was back then. And I don't know where he got it, but I'm glad he got it. As most of you know, we've been involved in Florida building a tract of rental houses. And lo and behold, we made the national news a few weeks ago. We were on a national TV. Unfortunately, it was on the Weather Channel. As Hurricane Irma made a right-hand turn away from Tampa, which we were happy in one way, but directly over Leesburg, so we were unhappy in another way. And I was talking to my best friend at 3 in the morning, his time. I said, can you believe this? He says, yeah. So I had $5,000 of damage in 20 houses. That's pretty cool. So we built these really good, I guess. In 1981, I had a life-changing experience. I went to a 3-hour seminar I didn't want to go to. Sat at the front table that I didn't want to be at. Figured out how long 3 hours was. That's 6 half-hour sermons, and I didn't know how I was going to make it. And the speaker in 3 hours changed my entire life. His name was Jim Rohn. Be my guest. I had no idea that was going to happen. I went home, I didn't sleep all night. I wrote a list of goals that I never had before. He literally changed the trajectory of my life, and it's never been the same since. When he passed away, we decided that we'd call the Jim Rohn Foundation and see if we could create something that would continue his legacy, because he was such a great teacher, and they allowed us to create this award called the Roni Award. And for 3 years running, we have given this award to the best teachers in our industry. And tonight we're going to honor 2 more teachers. They come from Florida. John Schaub. and Pete Fortunato. I see you've never heard of them before, huh? Now, this is a California audience, and you have garnered that kind of reaction. That's pretty cool. What all of these gentlemen have in common is they've changed thousands of lives for the better. And what they also have differently is they all teach in a different way, which is pretty cool. Some of them teach in front of audiences, and some of them do it one at a time. But they all had a passion to share what changed their life, and they changed others, which is so cool. The biggest thing they have in common, I have never heard anyone say anything bad about all 5 of these gentlemen. And so, to you, we are going to play a video of people who have been affected by what you've done for them.
Both John and Peter are living legends. I think there's no 2 better guys at the right time, right now, to recognize them for the Roni Awards.
I first heard about you and came into contact with you by reading your book, Building Wealth One House at a Time, which had a huge monumental impact on me in the beginning of my career. And that book did such a good job of just laying it out in easy to understand, digestible steps that it gave me hope that I could actually achieve this and do it.
You have given back to so many people, and I deeply appreciate everything you've done for me personally, my family, the future, and understanding how to invest wisely in real estate for the long run.
All those seminars that you gave to me has so impacted my family. Man, we're doing great. My kids are in college. They thank you for that.
You've just become a great friend, and I can't tell you how much you've helped my family, both my youngsters and my wife, Mary.
Always loved your way of explaining things very simply and comfortably.
One of the things he mentioned was don't buy 100 units. You don't need 100 units to live.
It's not how many houses you have and keep going. It's stop and enjoy it with your family, and that's what I like too.
He also taught us that making it big on little deals. What a great philosophy. You told us that if we bought one house a year for 10 years, we'd be home financially free. And that was a true statement for me.
Who knows where I'd be today if I didn't meet John, some 25 or more years ago.
I'll always be grateful for you, John.
He has certainly changed the way I invest. He has helped me and my family grow financially.
His education and his mentorship has meant the world to me and to my family.
Peter is probably the most creative real estate mind that I've ever met.
Pete, I gotta tell you, has got to be the most creative, gifted mentor, and the most generous guy I've ever met.
Loved his super technical approach as well as his heart.
Nobody but Peter and a handful of other people can make the crazy way I like to structure deals seem normal.
I am blown away by Pete's ability to and willingness to be able to solve complex problems just on the fly.
You were just so helpful for me, whether it be just offering sound fundamental advice or giving me ideas to get around problems that I never even would have thought of in a million years.
You taught everybody so easily, and you're just such a great teacher.
He's a gifted teacher, and I really enjoy every class that I've been able to go to, and I hope that I'll have a chance to go to many more.
Over the years, Peter has helped me so much, and he's always there for me via phone, via text, of course, or in person.
These are my absolute favorite teachers in the real estate field. You will not find better education or finer people than these two guys.
Pete can take a very involved transaction and break it down to its parts. John can make that transaction and communicate it in a very, very simple way, and the two of them just could be extremely powerful knowledge.
They're not just great educators, they really are master deal makers at knowing how to put transactions together.
Congratulations, you guys deserve it.
Great going, guys.
We love you, Pete, and proud to call you friend.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got to go around. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. They can sit here. Now, this is no joke. Hang on. Yeah. Whoa, I thought you dropped it. Please have a seat for just a couple minutes. I think that's pretty cool that a California audience is standing and cheering somebody that's visited them from Florida. And congratulations. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How did you guys get to teaching? Because doing the real estate and teaching is two different worlds for a lot of people. So just for briefly, Pete, how did you get into the teaching part of it?
Well, I went into real estate right out of high school.
Oh, we got to get you to speak. That's right. And they sing. So hold one of those, or we'll bring up to it.
I went into real estate right out of high school.
Yeah.
And so I had no assets to bring. I had to help people to earn a place in a deal. And so I had to teach in order to help. And so that's been a part of my life. It's my desire to help people. And as a capitalist, I'm darn well going to deliver more than I take from people every single time, or else they're not going to close with me. And so that's what I've done from the beginning.
One of the unusual things you've done is you've done many transactions with same families.
I do a lot of transactions. The relationships I develop are very important to me.
Yeah.
One of the things we discussed is I've done 71 transactions with 4 families in 50 years.
Yeah. Which I guess you must have treated them okay, or that wouldn't have occurred.
I hope so.
And John, how did you get into the teaching?
I was lucky enough to meet a fellow by the name of Warren Harding. How many people have ever heard or met Warren Harding? Warren was from my town, and my first teaching job was for a college teaching a real estate law class, but Warren talked me into teaching people about houses and flew me up to Detroit one day, and I did about a 3-hour speech, and he got me hooked, and he's encouraged me ever since. And he taught us to look at the people, not the numbers. He taught us to talk to folks, not overanalyze deals, because the people are always the key to the transaction. So I'm very thankful to Warren. I wish he was here with us, because he deserves this award more than we do, and he encouraged both Pete and I to teach.
That's Jack Fullerton encouraged me to teach, first time I ever got, and so that's the idea. The people that really are great teachers, get somebody else to go up there, give them a shot. So I congratulate you, I really do, as you've had a tremendous impact. And I got the chance to speak with you one time when we put on a seminar, and somebody asked me to speak in front of a club in Florida recently, and I said, I really don't want to teach on Saturday unless. I said, if you can get Pete Fortunato to do half the day, I'll come out and do it. And
it was easy. We're all such friends in the real estate community. It was easy to get us to do it.
Yeah, we had
John and you and I went to dinner.
We had fun. It was a great trip. And so again, thank you very much for all you've done for our industry. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we've got 2 segments of short interviews, and then we've got one longer one after dessert. I'm going to be asking Doug Duncan and John Burns and David Kittle to come up here, and I'll sit over there, and I will first introduce each of them. Doug Duncan is Fannie Mae's Senior Vice President and Chief Economist. He is responsible for providing all forecast and analysis on the economy, housing, and mortgage markets for Fannie Mae. Duncan also oversees corporate strategy and is responsible for strategic research regarding external factors and their potential impact on the company and the housing industry. He is Fannie Mae's source for information and analysis on the external business and economic environment, the implications of changes in the economic environment to the company strategy and execution, and forecasting for housing activity, demographics, overall economic activity, and mortgage market activity. Outside that, you don't have a thing to do, huh? John Burns is the CEO and founder of John Burns Real Estate Consulting. He founded the company to help business executives make informed housing industry investment decisions, giving them the most accurate analysis possible, specific property and portfolio investment advice. John co-authored Big Shifts Ahead, a demographic clarity for businesses, a book that makes demographic trends easy to understand, quantify, and anticipate. I'm just curious, how many in this audience have it? You got to get this book. It's honestly, it's hands down the silliest $29 investment. It's unbelievable that you put that in there for that buck. It really is. Thank you. Probably no surprise to any of you, I read it in one day with a yellow marker. David Kittle is the founding partner and president of the Mortgage Collaborative. David is a 40-year veteran of the mortgage lending business, in which he began as a loan officer before moving on to start his own company. He has also served and led the Mortgage Bankers Association, as well as several prominent MBA committees, including the MBA's Political Action Committee, Residential Board of Governors, and Board of Directors from 2004 through 2010. David has testified 14 times before Congress since 2008. We really welcome all of you back. Thank you. So you have to speak into that mic pretty well. I'm wearing one. You're not. I think what I'm going to do is I asked this question on the radio, Doug, but I need to hear one more time, to be honest with you. So, quantitative uneasing has begun in October, is about to begin in October. So can you explain how they reduced that balance sheet and its likely impact on mortgage rates?
Yeah, we called it the Great Unwind.
Great Unwind.
So at present, the Federal Reserve has about $4.5 trillion on their balance sheet, primarily of U.S. Treasury debt and mortgage-backed securities. About 1.8 trillion of that is mortgage-backed securities. This is the first time they've ever owned, in modern times, that they've owned anything other than Treasury debt.
Okay.
So what they're doing today is when you pay your mortgage and eventually you pay it off, then that mortgage-backed security that's backed by that goes away. So that would shrink their portfolio, but today they're buying enough to keep it constant.
Okay.
What they've announced at their meeting this past week is that they are going to stop reinvesting that principal, so eventually the amount of money in mortgage-backed securities on their portfolio will shrink and go away. Now, they've not actually said if it will go to zero. It's going to get small, but there's a possibility they might keep some because they've used it as a tool and they might want that available. What does it mean for interest rates? Over the long term, we expect that the spreads between mortgage rates and Treasury rates will get wider by about 25 basis points, or a quarter of a point of interest, or 40 basis points, something along those lines.
Okay. Just in the same line of thinking, Fannie Mae was kind of given the task of lowering their amount of loans that they held, I guess, by 10% a year?
Our portfolio, yeah.
Portfolios, and that has occurred. Where do those loans go?
Well, someone else has to buy them.
Well, who was that?
The Fed.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So we don't know who's going to buy them after the Fed doesn't hold them.
Okay.
That's the uncertainty in the market.
Okay. Next one for John Burns. In 2008, in December, you wrote a 20-page report entitled Unlocking the Housing Market Recovery. And you talked about that we had gotten in debt too much and that there was already widespread wealth destruction, and we better do something. So my question to you is, now that we're 8 years or more removed from that, what's your thoughts on how that was handled? And have we set a precedent going forward that we would implement the same thing?
Well,
he testified in front of Congress 14 times. I asked him if he ever listened, and he said no. So that's why we wrote the paper. I wrote it in December '08, right after Lehman Brothers blew up, and I ran all around with a friend of mine and talked to everybody I could in D.C., and I was blown away by just how people don't listen or look at numbers or set policy, or it's just kind of crazy. One of the things that came out of that was the tremendous opportunity to buy single-family rental homes, though, actually. And I was trying to talk Fannie and HUD and others to stop dumping everything on the market because you're just going to make house prices fall on yourself. Instead, restructure something and keep everybody in the house, be better for everybody. Oh, you know, we don't know how to manage properties. Capital doesn't want to do that. I said, capital doesn't want to do that? So I went out and got a bunch of capital to do it. None of those guys actually did it, the guys I got, but a new set of cast of characters came in, and I think some lessons were learned. And one positive thing I'll say about the government anyway is during the RTC debacle, they did write a white paper on lessons learned, and they learned the worst thing that could possibly happen was that the government could own banks. No, you joke. There were a lot of very big banks that should not have made it through this cycle, and the government learned their lesson that they were better off letting these guys run it and just bully them than taking it over. So I'm optimistic that there were a lot of lessons learned in this cycle that the government won't repeat again, particularly the regulatory groups.
Are you concerned about any unintended consequences about, it just was handled very differently. In the 90s, we actually foreclosed on people that didn't make payments, and this time we said, don't worry about it, and we had people not pay payments for 4 or 5 years.
So that was one of the things I was going to talk about later. People are already asking me what's the next downturn going to be like.
Well, we'll cover that, but I want to know, here's why I'm asking the question.
But I'm answering your question is, I think the world has changed, particularly if you go to Phoenix. 15 years ago, it was considered embarrassing to foreclose on, to stop making your mortgage payment, and it was considered a little bit of a damage on your reputation. Now it's considered the totally smart thing to do. So by the consumer.
Right.
So I think during the next downturn, the minute people have got no equity, all their friends are going to turn to them and say, why in the hell are you paying your mortgage? And people are not going to do it, assuming the government's just going to, there's going to be no damage really done to you other than a blip on your credit you can clean up in 2 to 3 years.
So I was leading to this question. Has that cascaded into other debt, namely college debt? Are we now having a group of people go, why should we pay that? There's a phrase in business called a service once rendered is rendered worthless. They've got a degree, but they have debt.
Yeah, no, and I've got a couple employees that paid more than $1,000 a month in student debt. And, you know, and I've talked to one of them in particular, you know, who went to a very good school. You got to remember she was 18 when she signed up for all of this. It was a myriad of stuff she didn't understand, but you're going to a really good school, you're going to get a good degree, and you're going to be fine. You know, and still it's been more than 10 years since she's graduated, and she's still struggling with this. And I think you need to put yourself in these people's shoes. This is the only debt out there you can't get away from. I mean, we really kind of structured something and took advantage of a bunch of minors almost, as a nice way of saying it. And I think some of them are now just saying, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel. And this is when we have a 4.5% unemployment rate, so they've all got jobs.
Right.
So the next thing coming is I'm thinking that we're going to see some big student
defaults. Okay.
Delinquency is about 30%.
Okay. We did a white paper on this a while ago, and we figured that the home sales volumes in the United States would be about 8% higher right now if we had not seen the run-up in student debt we saw in the last 15 years. That's how much it's holding back the market.
Okay. David, first of all, there's a rumor floating around?
No, that rumor is not true. I did not wear a thong on the beach in Turks and Caicos.
Oh.
With cowboy boots.
That's right.
That wasn't the rumor I was thinking about.
The other rumor.
Yeah. Do you have any comment on the other rumor? No.
Well, which one are you talking
Oh,
about?
geez, come on.
Well, it's an honor to be considered, right? And the rumor is out there, it's the worst kept secret in the mortgage industry, is put out there. I'm not putting it out there just to be that I will be nominated for the next Ginnie Mae president.
Ginnie Mae president.
Right.
Okay.
And that Ted Tozer, right. So if that were to come true, you know, that would be a great honor to be considered. It's, from what I hear, a tough process, a lot of investigation personally and privately and all of those things. So you just never know.
Well, congratulations on even the consideration. That's very cool.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but thank you.
Okay. Just in the event it happens, Ginnie Mae's role in the world of finance is what?
Well, it has a $1.8 trillion portfolio right now, which is actually the second largest behind Fannie Mae, larger than Freddie Mac. And that portfolio grew through actually the Obama presidency. This is me talking personally tonight, just answering the question. If anybody's listening, any place, would, you know, so a lot of, are you recording that? A lot of the loans that, I survived the real estate crisis.
That's
right?
correct.
All right, so the real estate crisis was about the subprime mortgages. I will still advocate today, as I did before Congress many times, that they weren't bad programs, they were just made to the wrong people.
Okay.
All right? There are still people who have subprime loans who are still paying on time, which would validate what I just said. However, over the last few years, under the past administration, many of the borrowers that had low credit scores went to FHA.
Right.
And those are in Ginnie Mae pools. And so...
And performing very well.
They're performing very well. They were written under tighter guidelines. However, if there is any downturn in the economy at all, then that could be problematic. So, I mean, that is why that portfolio grew to be larger than Freddie Mac.
Okay.
Because FHA lending was, you know, up to 50% of the mortgage market over the past 8 years.
Doug, we're only going to have probably time for one more question each for this segment. I'm just looking at, you have a market sentiment report that comes out. It's monthly or quarterly? Monthly?
Monthly.
Okay. Year over year, what's been the trend of the sentiment of the people that you've talked to? More excited about buying or selling, or what's their mood?
Over the longer term, and we started the survey in 2010.
Okay.
It's been an increasing sentiment just to be clear, the sentiment is about buying a house. So that it's not about refinancing, but we were interested in what's people's attitude about buying a house. So it started slowly and then accelerated in 2012 and has been an uptrend until the last couple of years. It's sort of flattened out, still positive, but has slowed in the pace of increase. And what we're seeing today is the impact of the historically strong house price appreciation in inflation-adjusted terms over the last roughly 5 years. Annual house price appreciation nationally has been about 4 times the long-term average. So what's happening today is when we ask people, is it a good time to buy a house, that number's actually
falling, yes.
And the primary driver is because of the high price of it. So when we ask people, is it a good time to sell a house, more of them are saying yes, and the primary reason is because of the price appreciation. So for the first time, those two lines have crossed.
One of the questions it asked talks about the kind of the confidence that you're still going to have your job, and that you might actually make aggressively more money. So the confidence level for the buyer is good for their personal situation, but they're wondering if the timing is not so hot. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
Okay.
interest rates are still good, but the price appreciation is an issue.
Okay. John, you made a statement in your book, state taxes and growth policies determine where America lives. You remember that? Hope so. I'm glad. I never can tell.
Co-authored, it could have been the other guy.
Oh, the other guy. Well, hopefully you read the whole book, not just your half. Okay, so having said that, what's going to be going on the next decade or so as far as where people are going to migrate to?
Oh, that's a layup question. So 42% of America lives in the South between Arizona through Florida up through the Carolinas, and 62% of the growth is going there. So that, where can you buy a job? Where can you buy a house affordably? Where can I get a job? Where is the weather nice? Where are they actually recruiting companies to come?
Yes.
Is in all those states, although there's a few states in there like the Mississippis of the world that don't get any of it. But that's clearly where the growth is going.
Well, we live in California and a lot of our money is invested here, so how's our policies rate? And
so we've got offices all over the country, and I'll tell you one of the more interesting shifts is we used to export people to Nevada and Arizona, and they'd stop there. They're all over the country now, and particularly in Texas. So people are keeping on driving, and we do a lot of research in Texas, and there's communities that a third of the buyers are from California, particularly in Austin, and they can't believe how cheap a house is either. And the locals are talking about, I can't believe these Californians, they're driving prices up. No, seriously, because a $400,000 house in Austin is really expensive, but to somebody from California, it's 50% off. And that's how they look at it.
they love when Californians show up. I mean, everything's on sale. So
Well,
it's
now they're
great.
bemoaning the fact that some of our city planners are there too, so they're getting zoning and other issues too. So,
David, I wanted to ask you about the mortgage collaborative. It talks about being a part of the best and brightest minds in the mortgage business, helping small and mid-sized lenders compete more effectively. So who is considered a big lender, and then what do you guys do to help them compete against those?
Well, I think the big lenders would be the big banks. You're talking about a Wells or
Fargo,
Citi,
okay.
some of the larger ones. And we now have, as of this week, 116 lender member of our company. We have aggregate production in excess of $205 billion. The average origination volume of our members is somewhere around $1.5 billion a year. We have some that are higher than that, in the 8 or 9 billions, but basically it's about $1.5 billion. And thank you, Mr. Putin.
We can always count on you. That's why I like that.
We're a threat. But it puts about 62 vendor preferred partners together with 116 lender members together, and it levels the playing field. It's not a new concept. However, what we do is we listen to our lender members, and they ask us to do certain things that we're doing, and it's growing expeditiously because we're listening to our members. So we have 38 depositories out of those 116 members, so it's diverse. A couple of credit unions, Boeing Credit Union, one of the largest, is a member of the Mortgage Collaborative. So it talks about our diversity and the fact that we started it 4.5 years ago, right at the right time. I wish I could take credit for it. I was one of the founding partners, but it was actually Gary Acosta, who is one of the co-founders of NAREP.
Yeah.
Is my partner in that, and Jim Park of ARIA, and John Robbins, a former NBA chairman. The four of us started it. Not my idea, but was very blessed to be asked to be part of it.
I'm going to ask each of you the same question, just a quick opinion. Looking at current policies, lending policy in place, which is the bigger goal at this point, making sure lending stays conservative or attempting to increase home ownership? You want to just pass?
Would you repeat that?
Sure, I'll repeat that. Looking at current lending policies that are in place, which is the bigger goal at this point, making sure lending stays conservative or attempting to increase home ownership?
Actually, I think it's easy. I think they're trying to increase home ownership, but they're going to fail.
And they're going to fail?
We've got more 90% plus LTV mortgages being made today than ever.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Sitting on his balance sheet, soon to be your balance sheet, and others. Yeah, there's a real misnomer that credit is tight. The documentation is extremely tight. And if you don't have the income, that's horrible. But, Dodd-Frank said thou shalt not make a loan above 43% debt to income ratio, and I think more than a third of the loans are above that. And I just told you what the LTVs are. And so those are the policies that are being implemented.
Well, those are the starting LTVs, but I mean,
No,
as a pile of the loans, it's got to be the safest pile we've ever had, no? I mean, you just went up. No,
it's not.
Okay.
So one of the biggest misnomers about there, and we're on live, aren't we? Okay, there's one group in Washington, D.C. that is very prominent and does a lot of analysis back to 2000 and considers 2000 lending normal. And those are the guys that have been around for a long time know that in 2000 we had the loosest lending ever and the highest home ownership rate ever. Okay, it got really stupid after that. So everyone's comparing it to 2000 and saying we're tighter than 2000. Yeah, you're right. But there was something called the 92 GSE Act that really pushed home ownership for 8 years before it got stupid. And we're lending looser today in terms of risk, LTV risk, than we were in 2000, than ever, actually.
Yeah, let me add a little bit of color to that. One of the things that we've been talking about is that we are late cycle in this economy. It's now the third longest economic expansion we've ever had. So we're under charter pressure to increase access to credit. So one of the things that you want to ask is if supply is a problem and house price appreciation is accelerating at about 4 times the long-term average, and you ease credit, aren't you being pro-cyclical to a downturn? So you have to be really careful when you think about asking for credit easing, because maybe the basic structure and economics of the portfolio is sound, but at the margin, the people who you're going to let in at the end of this cycle, at the margin, would be the first people that would be off. So you have to be really thinking about that.
I don't know where to begin with that. If we go back to where this started, and you worry about if the question is policy in place to encourage home ownership? I mean, interest rates have been at 0 for 10 years or whatever it is. And, I went out and did 18 individual real estate inspections this morning at some Pelican place. Played golf. Hey, when in California, play golf. So I'm with a friend of mine who is in the fraud detection business. And we're talking about this whole scenario. We've got interest rates at 3 or 4%. He's buying a house. Says, get a 3% mortgage. My God, in 1980, if I had that, I'd be a billionaire. But yet, home ownership is down. Applications are down. Recent survey for MBA. Existing home prices. You look at all this, there's no really positives. And I go back to, one of my favorite vice presidents, Joe Biden, who said that 3-letter word, jobs, is what we have to really focus on. And we're not there yet. So the policies are in place to buy a house. And we talk about credit is tough to get. I mean, I just look at it and I'm going, it's really not. Credit's out there.
It just has requirements that you might not be able to meet, but that's
and then
always going to be true.
I look at my friends in the business, if I can go to another place for just 10 seconds, is that okay?
Okay.
10 means 30. All right.
I know you.
I know. So when I had my own lending companies, average price to originate a loan was somewhere around $550, $600. It's $8,200 a loan now.
To originate
a loan. Really? And that's to put it on because that's all the compliance issues from the CFPB. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's all the backroom cost to do that.
Wow.
So somebody's paying for that, even at low interest rates. So you want to talk about the balance. I don't know if I've made any sense in that answer or not, but interest rates are at 3% and you worry if people are worried about buying a house or not. I mean, really?
Yeah.
So it's about being able to afford it, the affordability, verify, having a down payment to do it.
Well, on the next segment, I'm going to deal with that, okay? We'll talk about that. Thank you for this little bit of time, and we'll get you back up here after the break. Don't go. going to invite up to the stage Sarah Bonnert and Sean O'Toole. Sarah Bonnert, for more than 10 years, she has held various roles in sales, broker, and MLS services at Zillow Group. Today, Sarah manages the operational and data side of industry relations. She also leads Zillow Group's Tech Connect programs, which help agents, brokers, and MLS implement listing data feeds and set up traffic and lead APIs. Sarah, please come up. And Sean O'Toole is founder and CEO of PropertyRadar.com. Sean started his first software company at age 18, has been a serial entrepreneur ever since. In 2001, he started buying foreclosures, and besides being great timing, it sparked an idea that would bring together his newly found interest in real estate and merging it with his passion for technology, finance, and economics. What was born was Foreclosure Radar, which has gone on to become PropertyRadar.com. Sean's vision is to have PropertyRadar.com bring greater transparency and stability to the real estate market. So, Sean, thank you. You know, when I thought about what we would talk about, I was getting in my car, and it occurred to me that I didn't know where this was. I was coming in from Coto de Casa, and Aaron had sent me an email, and there was an address that was just on the email, and I thought, and I wasn't sure of the outcome, to be honest with you, because I'm not really that tech savvy. But I said, I wonder if I push it, would it automatically turn into a map? And it did. And I thought, I didn't have to get out my Thomas guidebook, which I don't have anymore. And then when I got to the hotel and checked in, I didn't have a key, and my hands were full. I had this plastic thing, I could just wave it, and it went in. And so, you know what? That's displacement. And we like some of it, and some of it we don't. And that's the part that we're going to talk about. Sean, you had started Foreclosure Radar in an industry that I was connected with. And if you were in Riverside going to trustee sales prior to the advent of Foreclosure Radar, there were 6 people, maybe 8 people that were there. After you put your brain into it, there were probably 100 or more that showed up. But what happened was interesting. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. But if you think about it, what you did was you made it possible for small people to compete with big people. Because all there were big people, because they had, first of all, the money to afford the list, and they had the time to devote to chase down when the sale was going to change and all that stuff. You automated that, and all of a sudden there were hundreds of people that got to do it. So, okay, you know, you start thinking about that chain of events. There were more people that made money in that industry than ever before. It was just spread more evenly. So, I mean, even though we were we weren't buying trustee sales at the time, but we knew people that were kind of bummed that this whole thing got changed. But it really was a benefit. And that's, go ahead.
I was just going to say, is this on? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We actually were just doing some estimates of what that looks like. And, you know, it's a little bit of a back of the napkin thing, but if we match up who our customers are with the transactions that happen, we think it was somewhere between, you know, right around probably $8 billion of profit in the last 10 years that our customers made.
Yeah. And instead of being in 20 pockets, it was in 2,000 pockets.
Right.
The other thing, we were forced to pay higher margins. I mean, the margins shrunk. And because of that, we had to get better at what we did. At everything, every piece of that transaction, we had to get better. And that's what happened. You got better at competing. So at the end of the day, that was pretty cool. Someone, and this is Sarah, someone smart, and he's sitting next to you, once said that tech savvy, he is tech savvy. He told me that if the product is free, you're probably the product.
Facebook.
Yeah, and so when I think about Zillow, there's no charge for me to show up there, which I've done a lot in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no charge to me.
To you as a consumer.
As a
Well,
consumer,
right.
yeah. Go ahead and talk closer to that until we explode. I guess it's okay.
That doesn't happen.
How many visits to the website does Zillow get in any time period you want to pick?
Yeah, we're averaging about 178 million a month you use.
A month?
Or unique users coming into the site, yeah.
Wow. That's just astonishing. And this is a company that started 10 years ago.
Yeah, it started in 2006.
Okay.
It's hard to believe.
It's probably exceeded anybody's wildest expectations, but what you've captured is all of those eyeballs that want to do what's next. And that's really your business model, is having whoever is next pay for accessing that gigantic client base. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, we, in general, look at ourselves as a marketplace. So when we built the site, we said, what does the consumer want? Which I think was a unique way to build a real estate platform, and not maybe what does the agent want or the broker want, what does the consumer want? So we think of them as our North Star. Like everything that we build on the site, that's what we're thinking of. What does she want when she's out home shopping? And then we basically, in its purest form, just want to be a marketplace. So we bring these eyeballs, these people coming in, and try to match them with the best agent. And then, now we're kind of evolving into trying to build tools that will help kind of smooth that transaction out. Because that's the next big pain point, is that it's still a bumpy transaction along and kind of in the dark a lot of times when they're closing. They don't know why something didn't close, or how can we help kind of smooth that out. Not being the broker, but helping with technology and tools and transparency.
How does the realtor view Zillow, and has it morphed into something that is better than it started? I'm just curious.
Yes. I've been at Zillow for 12 years. It's definitely gotten better. We wouldn't have gotten invited to something like this 12 years ago, so that's evolution in itself. How does a realtor view it? It depends on how the realtor's using us. So some people see us as a disruptor, I would guess. But we make money when they make money. If the agents aren't making money, they're not going to buy advertising.
Correct.
So that's how we make our money at the core. We're an advertising platform. So we want the realtor to win. We want the broker to win because they're selfishly going to buy advertising from us. People who use the platform, get involved in the platform, invest in a process to cultivate leads that come into the platform, love us. So we have a core group of people who are professional, full-time realtors who are investing in the platform, and they see high success.
And I guess that's part of my point, is that your target is really the agent that's going to be up to their eyeballs in activity.
Yes.
And they benefit most from the site.
Yeah, we are betting on the full-time professional realtor, and we are not betting on the casual real estate guy who does 1 or 2 deals a year.
Which are by far the majority.
Yeah.
So that's why, in one sense, you have, let's say the discussion would be not favorable to Zillow, but those are the people where the volume is going somewhere else. Now, just for fun, I played on Zillow, and I put in my home address, and all of a sudden popped up, there's 477 people shopping for that price range home in your area, and then there was an agent that popped up. How did that agent earn the right to be the pop-up on my on my inquiry, basically?
And your house is not for sale.
It is not.
Yours not for sale. So that's our premier agent platform.
Okay.
So it's market-based pricing. So think about Google AdWords, where you pay to show up on Google at the top or the third place, whatever. So again, it's not as simple as just showing up. It's a full platform then that we're trying to develop to say, yeah, you're going to show up, but then we're going to also offer you customer relationship management tools so that when somebody does, like you do, contact one of them because you're interested in selling, we are confident that we're hooking you up with somebody who has some kind of system to follow up with you. Because the big problem is we send all these leads and the consumer's not getting responded to. it's a big problem. I mean, there's all kinds of stats out there. When we started, it was well over 50% of leads were just not getting responded to. And that's a terrible experience for the home shopper. And that's kind of how we started looking like, do we always just send it to the listing agent? Well, what if the listing agent's not responding? Like, who's being served by that? Nobody. I mean, they think Zillow didn't send the lead, so we are a bad site. They think who knows where the blame lands. So we said, all right, this person has a system, they're using our tools, we can see that they're responding to leads because we know they're opened, and they work the system, and ultimately the house gets sold, which the listing agent is happy, and hopefully the person had a good buy-side agent.
Okay. Sean, foreclosure radar turned into property radar, and one of the things that you said, and I really enjoyed our interview, you talked about kind of the purpose of the company is for you to allow the small investor to compete with the big companies that are emerging. And so talk a little bit about how you're doing that.
Well, I really saw the power of public records first, and then just kind of big data in general. Zillow really only exists because they took public records data and developed this estimate, right, that became interesting to people and drew a lot of eyeballs to their site. And they leveraged the power of public records to really create a large, company, which has certainly been disruptive to some degree. And when we looked at that in kind of a larger scale, right, whether it's the trustee sales where it's very difficult to go get information, or at, even the bigger scale for just general marketing, right, there is a ton of data out there about you, not just in public records, but in other repositories. And I just have long had this vision that taking that data and making it more accessible will be important for small business to stay relevant.
You were mentioning, well, one of the things that's starting to occur, you have alerts that are new. And I know Aaron gets a big kick out of it, so explain what this new toy is.
Yeah, so a couple of the things that we thought were really important, besides just gathering all this data and making it easy to search and find and view, was, we're talking about millions of events a day, and tens of thousands of users with search criteria. Like, we have over 200 criteria, right? Unlike, a Zillow or a consumer site, people go, well, why aren't your site isn't as fast as Zillow? Well, they've got a handful of fields. It's completely different technology, super easy to make that fast. When you've got 200 different criteria that you can tap into, it becomes a lot more difficult, something we call an N-by-N problem. And so our event engine takes these millions of events and matches them up to these hundreds of criteria in real time for tens of thousands of users and takes action on them. And technically, it was a big deal. And I think we're the only one that has really anything like it.
Well, give me a practical application, well, maybe I'll just do it for you. Let's say we're a hard money lender and we want to know today that somebody closed a sale on a flip, and we can get that. We can get alert, and we can find out that Joe Smith successfully sold a home in Buena Park, and then we can look at his record and see, okay, he's done a lot of these, and we know we can contact him.
And see what he paid for it, as well as what he sold it for.
Right. And so, I mean, can you imagine how many daily alerts you can get that are direct hits on something that you're very interested in? That's a pretty cool tool. Now, how long has that been in effect?
We kind of launched the original version of it quite some time ago, but it's gotten a lot more powerful recently. And then, the big thing we did very recently is we added a lot of new data.
Okay. Sarah, probably the last question in this segment. The new instant offer, which is maybe a competitor to many of the people in the audience. So and she's leaving now. No,
It's
we're a
not?
friendly group. It's not. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So again, going back to this kind of marketplace concept, That's what we can view ourselves, and we view our position in this new iBuyer, I don't know, fad, phase, I don't know what's coming with it, something that's growing. So it's not really anything new, right? You guys are all been doing this for years, where you call somebody up and want to, invest in their house. Technology's kind of moved that along. And then a number of well-funded startups came in the space and kind of moved that even further and faster along. And so Zillow said, all right, I don't know if we can call people, like an open door calls you and says, I'll give you X number of dollars for your home, and this is a percentage I'll take, and here's your net proceeds. Well, Zillow said, well, that's really a one-to-one. You only had one chance for an offer. You don't really know what the marketplace is. You don't have anything to benchmark that against. So we invented Zillow Instant Offers. And in case you're not familiar with it, you as the homeowner can go on and say, kind of raise your hand electronically, say I'm interested in potentially selling my house, and I want to do it fast and
which I did yesterday, twice.
You did, yeah,
Okay.
there you go. And then we've partnered with a pool of investors at a couple larger companies and a couple of smaller investors in the area, local investors in the area. And then they have 2 days to respond to that and present an offer back. And they can say, we'll offer you this much, here are our fees, and here's the net proceeds, which is really the important number that the consumer cares about. How Zillow's differentiating is, again, it's kind of a marketplace where we're presenting a number of offers to the consumer, and we are offering an agent to participate in it. That's the big difference with our program. So you can say, an investor will offer you this. This is the net proceeds. If you want to go through the traditional real estate process, more than likely I can get you more for your house. We're going to have to put it on the market, and it might be a longer close. Like, the investors can close
few days.
Days, if that. And, if you want to go through the traditional, so the consumer has an opportunity to say, this is what I can get with an investor. If I want to go through the traditional process, I can make more. So they at least it's more transparent for the homeowner, and they're more aware of if going with the traditional real estate. So we feel like we are the only people in the iBuyer space that's actually giving the professional real estate agent a seat at the table and an opportunity to get that business. I'm sure your next question is, how's it working out? We're in 3 test markets right now, so it's kind of hard to say. We're in Orlando, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. We don't have solid results. We can say it's been double-digit conversion, which is the highest conversion we've ever seen in online real estate. So the people are coming with high intent to sell, and when they can see what they get, again, it's the net proceeds that matter. We're seeing them lean more towards to the traditional real estate process.
When you guys came out with this program, the reaction from the broker world was that, you're sort of converting to what we were afraid of. Your intent was going to be the broker in a transaction, and that's not true.
I mean, we're not involved in the transaction.
Correct. Okay.
And Bruce, I'm going to jump in. I think, especially for the people in this room, this emergence of the iBuyers, open door, offer pad, knock, instant offers now, it's what we all do, right? They're flipping houses.
Mm-hmm.
But they're bringing a ton of technology to this. So they go in, and just like we do as investors, they're going in and making offers to homeowners, right? But then they're buying the houses, and they're bringing a lot of innovation along the way, besides access to really cheap capital, cheaper capital than most of us have access to. And they're doing things like open houses where the buyer can walk up with their phone and unlock the door and go look at the property. So, I think this is a huge, potentially disruptive threat, not only to, realtors, but honestly to Zillow, and all of us as investors. And, so I think you guys, no offense, were a little reactionary in jumping into this, but it's probably good that they did, because they're at least comparing the realtor. What I'd really like to see you guys do as a next step is not just let these large institutional buyers compete for that, but let everybody in this room compete for those deals.
Yeah.
I would say that's definitely on the table.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I brought up the question, but thank you for, I was going to lead to that. But
Oh, sorry.
No.
You said last question.
No, that's fine. No, that's exactly because I get the sense that Zillow is trying to do a good service, and that would be a good service, is to give more competition and more local people, the
I mean,
chance.
it opens the marketplace up, which
It
is
does.
ultimately good for the seller,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So,
Yep.
I mean, and like I said, they're our North Star. So if that's what the seller wants, like, that's kind of how we
Okay.
tend to move.
All right, we are exactly on time, Aaron, wherever you are, and we are going to take a dessert break, and then we will reconvene with everybody up here for another round of questions.
The Norris Group would like to thank its gold sponsors for supporting I Survived Real Estate. First Lending Solutions, Guaranteed Rate and Nathan Chabollla. In a Day Development, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Jennifer Buys Houses, Keller Williams Corona, Keystone CPA, LA South RIA, Michael Ryan, New Western, North San Diego Real Estate Investors, Northern California Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Investment Club, Pacific Premier Bank, Pasadena Phoebe, Pilot Limousine, Real Wealth Network, Rick and Leanne Rossiter, the San Jose Real Estate Investors Association, San Francisco Bay Real Estate Networking Summit, Sunoco Corporation, South Orange County Real Estate Club, Spinnaker Loans, Think Realty, You Direct IRA Services, West and South Coast Plaza, Wilson Investment Properties, Inc.
All right, we've had a request. We're going to do an unscientific experiment, but this is the perfect group to do it. I'm going to ask anybody that owns at least 2 rental properties to stand up. It's a pretty good sampling. Now here's the question. So, no, you can't sit down yet, Sean. If you cannot sit down yet, if you knew the prices were declining and you felt sure they were going to continue to decline, would you be a seller? Go ahead and sit down. Would you be a seller if you knew prices were going to go down? Well, anybody that is, sit down.
All right, that's a resounding no.
That's a resounding no.
That's good.
Yeah. Now, thank you guys for participating.
All right.
Mr. Kittle. Yep, we're going to open with you. And I've been asked to ask you this question. So I'll own it because I was going to ask you something very similar to it. What is the craziest thing you see within the mortgage market right now, as in, oh, here we go again?
The craziest thing going on right now, kind of deja vu all over again, is in the fraud aspect of mortgages. It is not asset verification or anything right now. It's occupancy fraud, saying that I'm occupying the property and you're really not. So we're coming back to 10 years ago. So think about that. We're putting down that I'm going to occupy the property as my primary residence. Perfect example this morning, if I can tell you, from this individual that I was out with this morning, and this is what he does for a living. 2 guys buy a house, put it down as though the grandmother is buying the house, moving to Las Vegas, first flag, from Hawaii, buying a cheaper house. And that's how it was put down. It was application fraud. All right? That's what we're seeing right now. So the highest evidence of fraud is going back to occupancy fraud in a mortgage application, which had something to do with back in 2008.
Yeah.
Hey, you asked.
No, that's interesting. That was one of the things I've seen in some of those reports where upwards of 50% of the new homes were being bought by people that were investors that were saying they were living in the house.
And so the grandmother was called because he is paid to investigate for the mortgage insurance companies, right, that are insuring this property. And she goes, oh, yes, they're buying the house there. You're not. Like, oh, no, I'm so happy here in Hawaii. And was put down. And, there it is. It's validation. He validates what the call was made and that there's the fraud on the loan.
Well, here's an embarrassing personal story. I'm 23 years old. I have bought a residence. I'm buying an FHA repo. And I'm signing the papers. And, it's only my second real estate deal, so I'm no paperwork expert, but I'm looking at it, and if the box is checked, I'm going to live in it. So I said to the agent, I said, I'm not going to live in it, I'm going to rent it. She said, oh, they checked the wrong box. She said, go ahead and sign it and I'll get it corrected. Well, I'm 23 years old thinking she's telling me the truth. This is, okay, I mean, for a guy that's never even seen the principal's office, this is a big deal. 60 days later, knock on the door, my wife gets read her rights by the FBI. And I'm going down to the office for, you know, going, what the heck? And they said, yeah, that's a problem. Well, turns out they were after the broker that was selling all the FHA repos instead of to owner-occupants to investors and telling them all the same thing. But still, I had to go see the FBI twice. So whenever anybody after that said, well, this is our policy, I remember one time on a loan transaction, I was going to do it like last 1031 exchange, I was going to get one loan in Texas. It took on and on. Finally, the application and the loan docs came back, and it was completely different than my stuff. And I said, well, that's not my stuff. He said, well, yeah, it was too confusing. You have companies and everything. We simplified it. We do that for all our clients. I said, I'll pay the taxes on the last sale. Forget it. So anyway, some of that. I guess I wanted to get this because of the last question right at the end. Do we have concern about the mortgage pools that we already have for future foreclosure problems? Because I don't, but I just want to know, is that one of the things you kind of are thinking?
Well, the most recent mortgages, until I heard about the occupancy fraud, I thought were pretty well documented with real people's incomes, and so I don't think we have that problem. The problem that I alluded to earlier is that the LTVs on them are kind of high. So maybe the default rate won't be as bad in the next downturn, but the loss rates could be more severe because we'd go into it with very low equity.
Yeah, but why would you take a big price hit when the trustee, let's say the trustee sales are a very minor part of the market, which I think they would be. They're all fixed loans. Tons of people have equity. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. I just don't see it.
Defaults happen when people lose their job. And so the next downturn would be a recession, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people have 6 months of mortgage payments in the bank, and that's how that plays out.
Yeah.
I think John's earlier comment about, the government does learn some things, specifically from the 90s, they learned that we don't take back banks. And I think from this last one, they learned that we don't take back homes. Right. So I really don't think we're going to see a wave of foreclosures. And without that forced inventory onto the market, we're not going to see a big decline in prices from that, at least.
Okay. John, I'm just going to ask this one to you because of something that's always said in California that I just don't get, that builders are building something like 80,000 less homes than we need, something like that every year. I don't get it. Is that?
They're having a tough time making money. I mean, if they'd build 80,000 more homes if they could make money doing it.
Right.
So just the land is in the outlying areas.
Okay.
The permit fees have gotten out of control. I mean, we had, 7 years of a drought, and they were forced to sandbag all around the homes in case there was rain so no nails run off into the ocean. I mean, there's all sorts of crap that they get hit with. I was in Texas this week, in San Antonio, they're complaining because home prices are $240,000 now, and they're talking about how unaffordable it is. I said the fees in Carlsbad are $120,000. Welcome to California.
Okay.
I mean, if we could build them for $250 and make money, the home builders would be building hundreds of thousands of homes in California.
But that's not going to change. That's not.
I don't see it changing.
No. Okay. What about the issue of low inventory? I'm just curious because we hear that all the time, and yet we don't have. I don't think we have really aggressive prices. To the point where we would typically have price aggression, at least in California. When we have the charts that we're looking at, we usually have double-digit gains, and we don't. So the inventory, to me, is pretty much matched with demand, but I keep on hearing low inventory. So is there any case for that there's low inventory, why it is?
Well, home prices are appreciating at about 4 times the long-term national average. The millennials against all of the newspaper articles that you read, are actually now the driver of home purchases. They are doing what they've said. As soon as they got a job that was stable, they would get married, and then they would have babies, and then
Was
they
that
would buy
tongue in
houses.
cheek, or I don't know? As soon as they
And
got a
move out of
job.
their parents' basement with perhaps some subsidy. That was a millennial joke.
Yep.
But they're doing that. But our evaluation of demographics is that in order just to meet the current demographic profile, we should be building about 1.5 million units per year. We're building 1.25 million. So we're at least 250,000 units less than what our view of demographics would suggest, which means if there is that level of demand and there is not that level of supply, price only has one thing to do, and that's to go up.
Okay. Another issue that I hear all the time is affordability issue. So, go ahead.
All three of these are the same issue. And so, back to John, we're not building enough homes. It's the same issue. And, in California, it's CEQA, it's Title 24, it's all these different things. You want to build a new house now, you have to put in plugs that have the child protection built into the plug. And all of these things add up. And they're all good ideas, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And and that's where we sit with California homes, and it's affecting the rest of the nation now too.
Well, I was just thinking that I just mentioned millennials. Nobody has bashed on the boomers tonight, so let me pick on the boomers for just a second. And it's the same issue. It's the labor supply question, right? So just like people said millennials want to live in 300 square foot apartments, that was not true. That's where the jobs grew first. The only place you could afford was a 300 square foot apartment. Now that jobs have dispersed geographically, there are some places you can afford those entry-level homes. The boomers were rumored 10 years ago to be, when the kids moved out, they like to party, so they're going to sell the suburban house and move downtown and party the night away. Now, I live in Cape Coral, Florida, which our kids call God's waiting room. So you can tell they're being raised by an economist, no emotion involved, right? So I can tell you the evidence of the boomers in Cape Coral. If you want a good restaurant reservation, wait till about 7:30. But what the boomers are doing, they've been saying all along, we intend to age in place, and they are doing that. And what they're doing is they're taking that $6 trillion of equity that they have, tapping some of it, and remodeling their house. If you look at the productivity of labor, it's highest in apartment buildings, it's next highest in single-family detached dwellings, and it's the lowest in remodeling. That's the most labor-intensive. So they're part of the problem for the builders to build new homes, that they're attracting labor away into the remodeling space. So it's, again, a demographic profile, but it's all the same issue. The whole thing's all the same issue.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Are you a boomer?
Hello. So I'll validate that. So I have 4 millennials, 37 to 23, 2 boys, 2 girls, right? It goes girl, boy, girl, boy. Both the girls own homes. They're married. Both the boys, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Right? They're not married, but they both have jobs. Both have jobs. And all 4 have graduated from college. How about that, all right? 4 colleges, 2 weddings, and I'm broke and I don't have any money to invest in real estate.
I'm looking for a government job.
I'm looking for a government job, though. I need a retirement plan. You have anything at Fannie Mae?
I don't know. I'll see your credentials.
Yeah, okay. But Whitney, my oldest, right, just 37, on the cusp of being that, to Doug's point, just remodeled her home. No children, her and her husband, great incomes, they travel. Paige, my youngest daughter, both the girls, she lives in Hawaii, all right, owns a home in Hawaii, for goodness sake. Off the charts what it cost. However, probably doesn't plan to have any children at this time. So they are into themselves, which is what millennials are into, right? I mean, they really are. That's what they're in. They're into themselves and traveling and not having, and I mean, it's a perfect example of what Doug just said.
I can't resist. There's a song called Gotta Love Millennials. It's hilarious. I look at it at least once a week just to put a smile on my face. I do. What constitutes a bigger affordability problem? Because whenever I hear affordability, I hear the word crisis. And when it's exaggerated like that, it's bothersome because then there's sometimes actions taken. So first of all, do we have the biggest affordability problem for the owner or the renter? And okay, well, first of all, let's figure out which one of those have the biggest issue, because my concern is some of the solutions, if it's one or the other, might be unpleasant for people that own rentals. So, John, you're just sitting there.
They're different problems. In the rental space, in the apartment building world, there are some markets now that have probably excess supply, but they're all A-level quality properties.
Right.
So nobody's building C-level or what were the most affordable.
Give them time,
apartments.
it'll turn into a C.
Well, that is exactly right. That is why you see Fannie Mae focusing on credit characteristics. I agree with you. And so that's what it does is it impedes the ability to save money to buy a house. But then builders are not able to build entry-level houses, so you kind of have a circular problem.
Yeah, and I'll answer the payments and property taxes, everything as a percentage of people's income is not at an all-time high, but the rents as a percentage of people's income is. So
Okay.
I think that probably answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend that's got about 1,000 rentals. He doesn't own 1,000 rentals. He owns a management company, and in Riverside, he said the rents are unbelievable. And he is managing one property I have in Riverside. I thought $1,300 was the rent. He rented it for $1,900.
Is now a good time to give you my solution?
Yeah, let's do it. I got 5 of them. Let's see one of them if it's here.
Okay. So if I stood up here when he started this 10 years ago and I said there'd be 1 million people staying in strangers' houses tonight, you would have said I'm an idiot, right? But that's what's going on with Airbnb. So the world has adopted this as an okay thing to do. We're entering into a world where 3.5 million people per year are retiring, and most of them need an extra $800 in income, and they have their mortgage paid off and have 2 to 3 empty bedrooms. And you've got a lot of people paying $1,500 a month in rent who would rather pay $800, willing to do some chores. I mean, heck, if I'm a single parent and the retiree's going to stay at home in the afternoon with my child, that's a win-win. I think some of the household formation numbers and some of the construction you talked about is going to be less than that because some of the demand is going to be satisfied by that supply.
Do you see an opening there for Zillow?
I tried to talk Airbnb into doing it, and they're going after the apartment guys instead, but I think it's a big opportunity.
Airbnb is a competitor that we consider them a competitor now. Though.
Okay.
I mean, we watch them closely.
But do you have that same product?
We do not.
You do not, okay.
Not short term.
Okay. I guess I'm concerned about rent control.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw this, but I just saw, doing some reading this week, that 60% of Californians now favor the idea of rent control. Did I see? That wasn't your stat, John?
I read that. Yeah?
I wish I could quote where it's from, but yeah. I will look for it and send it to Bruce, and he'll post it somewhere.
80% of Californians don't even know what it is, though. So.
They just voted for it.
I was really curious how easy that is to pass somewhere that it isn't. I know you have pockets where it already is, LA and some other places, but
just yesterday we had Senate Bill 2 go through, which adds a $75 recording fee. Not go through, but it finally made it through the assembly, so now it looks like it'll probably happen.
I don't recall voting for that.
Yeah. But it's this,
That's
most
for
of the mantra
affordability.
right now is we're going to solve affordability by adding fees to housing.
Okay. would there be, from the builder world, is there more density that might be possible or allowed?
Oh, I think there's a lot more density coming. But actually, when I got into this business, and you remember this too, the cities wanted less density. Now the cities are pushing for even more than the builders want to do. They've completely reversed on this. And I think the disruption of retail that's going on, and then you start throwing in ride sharing and stuff, a lot of these parking lots are going to become unnecessary eventually, and you're going to see some land in good locations get redeveloped into mostly rental housing. And we coined a term for this because we're seeing it in the suburbs now, where the suburbs are saying, bring some of that urban to my area. We trademarked the term suburban for it. But we're doing a lot of feasibilities on suburban development all over the country. And if you throw in parking lots not being necessary, what a great opportunity.
Yeah, I read that report that one of your guys wrote. That was interesting. Talk a little bit about homeownership. I mean, it's down from the peak. I guess we can agree it shouldn't have been there in the first place, but there's a lot of people now that are renters that used to be owners. And you made a quote that I like. It says, ownership has clearly declined in importance. So I guess my first question, is that in the eyes of the would-be buyer, or is it in the policymakers where they go, we just don't care if that many percent own anymore? So
I think the policymakers care. I think the consumer doesn't. I can't remember the last time we ran a focus group where entry-level buyers were saying, I'm buying for the interest deduction. But that was the case in the 1980s, right? And the house is a piggy bank notion. I think people do have memories that's not necessarily the case. And we in the book that we did, we drew a lot of parallels between those born in the 1990s and those born in the 1930s. As kids, they saw the Great Depression and one saw the Great Recession. And Warren Buffett's generation was extremely afraid of debt. This generation is extremely afraid of debt, and you can ask any banker, they're not using credit cards or using debit cards. And I think if you're afraid of debt and you don't have 6 months of savings in the bank, a greater percentage are just not going to make that leap into home ownership, regardless of the fact that I'm spewing a lot of my money into rent. You really can't buy a home and have your payment go down. That's not the math in California right now either. So that's why I'm very convinced one of the reasons homeownership is going to fall.
Sarah Zillow does a lot of research on why people buy stuff, right? Why they go to the website, why they buy. What's your feeling about why people make the buying decision, I guess?
Gosh, these guys are probably better to ask that question than me. I'm just the advertising person up here.
You can pass. It's okay.
Your business is worth $7 billion and mine is not. So
there's that.
No, that's okay. So why do people? What's any response? Why are people buying? I mean, I can tell you why I own, and I knew for sure when I wrote that report called the California Crash, I really thought prices would go down by half. Did I sell my residence? No. It went from $1.2 million to $600,000, and the reason I kept it was because of a phone call I made trying to be a renter. I called a guy that had a really cool house. I said, I'm not your typical renter. I'll pay a year in advance. He said, everything sounds great. He says, can I ask you a question? And he said, do you have a pet? And the second he asked that question, I knew I couldn't be a renter, because I don't want anybody ever to get to ask me that again. And it was worth $600,000 to say, I'm so glad you asked the question. So that's why I found I wanted control. And I don't know, I don't want that to be not part of America, to be honest with you. It bothers me that we're not thinking. I think there's some negative ramifications, so let's talk about some of that. I think building equity is important because it's usable for entrepreneurship. I don't know how many of us had a house go up. First of all, your payment is fixed. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here, but here I am. And I'm an investor.
How many people rent from you?
100% of them.
There you go.
It doesn't mean that I don't think they should own. I wish they had a chance. But I think that when people own, they get the payment fixed. To me, that's spendable income. I don't know if you remember your first house payment. You're going, $191. How am I ever going to make it? And then 4 years later, you go, my car payment's $230. My house payment's a joke. And all of a sudden, I've got equity. I can tap it. I can go be entrepreneurial. That's going to be missing for millions of people. I just don't think that's a good idea. Okay.
Our survey, our...
One person like that. Thank you very much.
I was almost stuck on the pet thing, and then I was going to ask if you got your wife back from the FBI.
I was lucky I still had a wife, to be honest with you.
Our survey shows that to John's point, the younger population is definitely more financially conservative as a result of their observation of the crisis. However, they also ultimately want to own a home. But it's much more for the reason that you're talking about, which is that it's a place to raise a family, and it's more the attributes of ownership than it is the investment value. Although, if you look by age, when you ask the question, what do you think of housing as an investment value, they actually think it's the highest as an investment value of any of the age groups. Now, that's partly because the prices had gone way down, so that number is actually migrating now to where they're getting more realistic about where house prices have gone.
So, if we believe MBA statistics, and this is something I'm passionate about, I mentioned NAHREP earlier. I just came from, that's the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. I just came from their annual convention a couple of weeks ago in Dallas, and amazing. And if we believe MBA statistics, 65+% of the borrowers going forward over the next 8 to 12 years are going to be Latino, 68%, and Asian American. So I was asked to speak at the convention on a DC update. I didn't do it. I talked to Gary about it, and I said, I just want to talk about real immigration reform, because it's like Obamacare has failed, immigration has failed. We need to embrace it and understand it. The old white guy sitting up here is the minority going forward as the home buyer. Familia is important to the Latino community. The hardest working, most patriotic people I've ever seen in my life desire to come here, born here, and own a home. So home ownership's going to go up. We don't have enough inventory for it, and we don't have the programs to finance these people because we can't verify their assets because it comes from grandmother and a mattress or wherever the hell it is. And guess what? They work hard, and I'm talking about they're Americans. And so we need to embrace that and think about it because it's here and it's a sea change coming, and that's where your next home ownership wave is coming from. So we better wake up.
Well, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just say, I don't know statistics, but from a shopping perspective, we just launched realestate.com under the Zillow Group family of brands, and it was basically built with the millennial in mind. And we focus less on the price of the house. Like, we don't put the price of the house forward, but the payment of the house forward. So we're helping consumers shop from kind of an affordability perspective versus solely looking at that price. And then translation was a big part of that build out. So with the click of the button, you can translate that into Mandarin or Spanish.
Yeah. The three impediments, so let's talk now from the lending world's perspective. There's down payment, there's debt ratio, there's credit. Which one of those three could you safely play with and have still a successful loan portfolio that you're happy with? Could you do a nothing down loan program?
Yes. You could get rid of all three of them if prices were at the right level. In 2009, you could have made a loan to any homeless person and not lost a penny. What we have to stop doing is making loans when prices get out of whack, and we do exactly the opposite, right? So in 2009, we tightened up credit. You had to have 20% down. And you heard what he said, I don't know which one of you, but said, now most loans are over 90% LTV. When we're back up, getting up to a peak, we're doing it exactly backwards. We should have had the highest home ownership rate ever coming out of 2009, 2010, not the other way around.
But, okay, go.
So I remember getting asked in 2009 in congressional testimony and getting screamed at, Mr. Kittle, would you really make a 100% mortgage? You've got to be kidding me. I said, absolutely, Senator. And I said, VA loan, right? That's right. So why are VA loans historically the most or the best performing loans in a portfolio? And it's one reason and one reason only. They're 100% loans. There's no down payment. Anybody know what it is? Can anybody tell me in the audience? What is it?
Consumer.
Say again? No. It's one thing in an underwriting guideline. It's called a residual income. So once you underwrite it, like you do a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac or an FHA loan, they have to have, after all you do, so much money left over to live on. Wow, isn't that just rocket science? So think about that just for a second. That has been there for decades. And we don't put that into the other loans we underwrite. It's called residual income. It's still there today. 100% loans perform great. It's not the down payment. It's whether or not you can make the payment and whether or not you have the historic income reserve and whether or not, you're credit worthy. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with low down payment loans if you can afford it. They're all good programs when made to the right people.
Okay.
And I'm running for Congress.
So when you're in charge of everything, then can we get a nothing down loan? I'm just curious. Okay. What about combining something? I've suggested this before, and I've talked to you guys in front of the audience, and I mentioned it to John Burns. Couldn't we create a hybrid if we think ownership's important? If we think, you know what, we're better off society-wise if 5% more own. Could we do a nothing down loan program and combine it with two things? There used to be something called a simple assumption, to where the loan could move to somebody willing to make a payment. FHA, yep. Correct, but no, it used to be simple. In other words, I didn't have to fully qualify. I had to make the loan current at the end of escrow and send in $35, and there wasn't a foreclosure. Additionally, in allowing it to walk to another buyer, allow for a foreclosure to occur and the opening bid be only the back payments, to where the principal is never at risk. That you literally had an opening bid at like $5,000 or something, and somebody could make it current and take it over. Why can't we do that? No, there wouldn't be no losses.
I think part of the problem is just it's this institutional knowledge and this, this sense that the things are the way they are. I mean, I see so many there's a recent National Bureau of Economics research study, and it made me want to pound my head into a wall. It was just the assumptions were so bad. I think what's going to happen is we're going to move past loans and past transfers as we know them today. I think we'll see a completely new innovative product where it says, you own this home, but you own it like you own a share of a REIT. And you get, if your home, your share goes up in value, you get that value increase. But any day you feel like moving, move. And we'll put somebody else in that one. And we'll just trade shares.
Sounds like real estate Bitcoin or something.
I think it will. I think it'll be like the way to move past this is to stop thinking about the current solutions, right? The mortgage business has been around for so long. It's time for it just to go away completely. No offense.
I like when these two get together.
Think about it. I mean, just whether it's blockchain or something else that says there's a completely whether it's blockchain or something else, like we need to think about home ownership in a completely different way, where there's a frictionless, marketplace. Because the amount of friction, right? So you think about it, if I've given, this property comes in, I've spent thousands of dollars on title insurance, right? If it's not trading hands, really, it's staying within this thing, we don't need title insurance anymore. Sorry, title insurance companies, right? But I mean, like, everything could change. And I think for those that are in title insurance, those that are in lending, those that are in real estate, it's going to be something like that that disrupts everything.
I think Roofstock's trying to do that.
What is that?
Roofstock?
Roofstock is, so there's folks around talking about this at the fringes.
Which is?
In Silicon Valley today.
Which is, I don't know what Roofstock is.
It's kind of another model like Open Door, except more your...
Like fractional ownership.
Fractional ownership?
Yeah.
Okay. Roofstock?
Roofstock, OfferPad, Open Door, Knock, you should be following all of those.
Okay.
Well, I can't believe you don't know Roofstock, because Roofstock's an MLS for selling homes with tenants in them. So if you want to sell a home with your tenant in it, you go to Roofstock. You want to buy a home with a tenant in it, you go to Roofstock, and all the due diligence is laid out for you.
Maybe we interviewed them. I forgot.
Yeah.
I think we actually.
I told them to sponsor here, and they had something else going on.
Oh. Yeah, I guess that's over, huh? Yeah, the guy doesn't even know us. All right.
I'll be here next year.
I've got to ask this, and I didn't think I would be in any doubt about the answer, but now I am. Do you expect a downturn in real estate? Maybe I ask this. Do you expect the next downturn in real estate to be mild or harsh? Anybody? And why?
When?
Yeah, when,
That's the right
yeah.
question.
When's a good question.
Our view is that given that there is the supply problem that exists today, and we are late cycle, there will probably within at least the next 24 to 36 months, there'll be another recession. But because of that supply shortage, housing is likely to return to its normal cyclical pattern where it will actually lead us out of the recession. The question is how far unemployment goes. If unemployment only goes to, say, 7%, what you see is some easing off on price pressure, and you see rates are certainly not going to go up, they're going to go down. And so those 93% of households that are still employed, some of them will want to...
How far will it go down? We'll get to 2 something? Like the cover of this report?
Right.
Okay. Do you have an opinion of the next downturn?
We're running out of time.
No, we're not. I've got the clock.
I'll just say I don't think we're going to cause the next downturn. We'll just be impacted by it. And we did a deep dive on 20 industry sectors that might cause it. I think healthcare is massively over-levered, and healthcare is 17% of our economy. The stock market, actually, more people are borrowing money to buy stocks today than since 1929. The tech companies getting interrupted, the retail industry is getting disrupted, but all the issues are in publicly traded companies who went out to the bond market. There's no issues really with private companies who couldn't, because the banks have been pretty conservative. So we identified what risks are out there, and I think Doug hit the nail on the head. If we go to 6-7% unemployment, we'll be through it just fine. If we go to 10, it'll be ugly, but we'll be leading is out of it because we are going to need more construction because of the demographics. So I guess I waffled a lot there, but our forecast is it won't be that bad as our best guess.
Okay. I mean, one of the reasons why I think it wouldn't be nearly as severe and maybe very mild, first of all, you will get an interest rate that's very reasonable. We have not pulled out equity this time, correct? And we've had this pretty good price increase, but it hasn't been our habit to borrow all the money out. It's still sitting there. And instead of having a variable loan a pretty high percentage of the time, whatever that is, we haven't gotten that loan. It's fixed, and it's fixed with a 3 or a 4. So I look at that and go, okay, I don't see, you're going to lose your job and you're going to have some people lose their house. But that's not going to be a dominant percentage of what's available for sale in the next downturn, especially if we sort of kind of pre-played how we're going to handle people that can't make their payment this time, and I think we're going to treat them kindly.
Well, the smartest thing to do for everybody is to just forbear their mortgage payment until they get a job back. I mean, everybody wins in that situation. So hopefully that's what people do.
What about, and just for the sake of argument, what about the ultimate investor there in forbearance?
Well, they lose, I think they'll lose less that way. I mean, how much did they lose when we threw them out of the house?
Well, I don't know. I get to the point, and this is a great debate here. You know, I was raised, I guess I'm older than you, that if you sign the mortgage, it's yours, and if you can't pay for it, you lose it. And it's not the government's job to step in and help you out. And so there's some accountability in there, which we didn't have. We picked winners and losers in the meltdown. We let some fail, and we bailed others out that shouldn't have been bailed out. And we've got, Doug's been in conservatorship, not personally, for, 9 years now, right? And it was going to be temporary. And if we'd have left it alone and let them fail, they could have come out on their own 2 years earlier, and we wouldn't be in this mess today. So at some point, you got to let it take its course. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree with that. But I mean, if you're going to be running a $1.7 trillion mortgage pool, you may look at it and say, okay, I want to foreclose on this guy because he's not paying his job, but that might cost me $400 billion if I do that, and maybe if I can just hold on and help the guy till he gets his mortgage back, it only costs me $100 billion. That's a big difference.
That's a lot of ifs. I get that. I'm just talking about basic black and white and what is right and what is wrong. To me,
I didn't say it was the right thing to do, not to violate a contract, but I did say it was an option that I think people learned, that if I'm the holder of that mortgage, I will get more of my principal back that way. That's all I said.
And actually, SoFi, which is, to Sean's point about the innovation in the space, SoFi, one of the things they do is if they have your mortgage and you lose your job, they help you find another job, specifically because of that issue. So they actually have a job location function within the mortgage unit.
Wow. Have to think about that one.
I think to your point, though, there's a ton of unintended consequences. You know, I sometimes joke that it started with Nordstrom, right? This idea that you can just walk in and return anything, and it's becoming pretty widespread, you know. Kim over here, my support person, like occasionally has to deal with somebody who just thinks because they say they can get whatever they want. And, you know, I think it's an interesting thing, right? Maybe, you know, whether it's customer service or whatever, maybe we should be saying no to people who are doing the wrong things, and more yeses to the people that are doing the right things. And
wow. I need a drink.
But I mean, really, from customer service to all this stuff, we're building in this idea that you don't need to, you know, follow whatever's right. You don't need to make your payment. You don't need to, and there shouldn't be consequences, and we should protect you. I think there's big long-term unintended consequences of where society goes and where society devolves because of that. To you know, kind of back up your point, I think we'd be in a very different financial position had we not let a lot of people sit in their houses and not make their payment. We still have Nevada, which has seen a big increase in price. They have 10.6. They have the highest negative equity in the nation. And they basically made foreclosing illegal, right? They changed the laws and said, you know, robo-signing, at the end of the day, we're going to put you in jail if you robo-sign a loan. What person at the end of the day at any bank knows anything about the loan? The computer knows everything about the loan. Are we really going to make somebody sign off? Well, there's no personal bankers anymore. No, and so we're going to put you in jail if you robo-sign? I mean, yeah, we've gone a little off the reservation.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. You're known for that.
Yeah, Bruce doesn't look at the watch anymore. He looks at his phone. I mean, you know.
Yeah, high-tech Bruce, okay. Any tax law changes any of you think are going to probably be implemented, and what would their impact be on real estate?
Yeah.
No? Okay, a big...
It's the only good thing I could potentially... Well, no, never mind. It's the one piece I'm looking forward to out of this administration.
Is the tax?
Some tax relief personally.
Okay,
Not necessarily saying, it's whatever, but
okay. So you think that, I mean, is that going to happen? You think that's, I'm hoping it happens too, of course.
So personal opinion, that we get relief and not reform, and that's a sad thing.
yeah. I think it'll put us in worse shape long-term, and help my pocketbook short-term. I think that we may, if we get anything, that's what we'll get. We won't get, something that fundamentally puts us back on track. And, this debt thing we've got is a permanent thing. It's, you talked about quantitative uneasing. Yeah.
40 trillion, yeah, that's pretty much.
Talked about quantitative uneasing. That's going to last months until the next recession, and then we're going to go back the other way.
Okay. Standard deduction, that's maybe something that goes up so high that it makes, and you already did a report on that, the interest deduction is almost a moot point for a great many owners. That would make it completely.
Right.
So what do you think would happen to the desire to own a home? Does that have any impact at this point, or is it already a moot point?
Well, let's separate the desire from ability. So all the surveys still say that everybody wants to own a home. So the ability would be, does it make it any easier? For some people it might, because they're deducting $24,000 now and they can save and pay less taxes. And I don't know the net answer. I haven't studied it. We did do a white paper on the mortgage interest deduction though, and something like 80% of it goes to 5 states. And we're one of them: New York, Virginia, Massachusetts. The rest of the country, it's really not that big of an issue except for a real small percentage of families.
It'll hurt second homes, RVs, and boats. Getting rid of the mortgage interest deduction will hurt those 3 things.
Okay.
Bad.
But if you're asking, will it happen? Our whole forecast this year has been predicated on no health care reform, no tax reform, and some regulatory reform. So the 3 rules of forecasting: if you give a number, don't give a date. If you give a date, don't give a number.
Okay.
If you get it right, don't look surprised.
Okay. Doug, you had mentioned in our interview, we didn't have time to talk about it, that we need to get back to GDP growth of 3% or more. You thought it was possible, but didn't see policies being implemented that could be. So what?
Refer to my prior answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare reform is the key because it was the thing that determined how far they could go toward reform versus relief. So if you don't get healthcare reform, you're not going to get deep tax reform because of the cost, as John referenced, is the share of GDP which goes to healthcare. So that was the key. And there is still, I think the Senate is like 1 vote away from failing again. So there's still a little bit of hope of that happening, but it won't have any impact on this year. If they get that, then you may see some progress on taxes. But remember, in the Reagan administration, there were the marginal tax rate cuts that were made in 1981 that took effect in 1983. That was intended as an economic stimulus. Fundamental tax reform took place in 1986, and it was possible because the real GDP growth, that is after inflation, in 1983, 84, and 85 were over 4%, over 6%, and over 4% again those next 3 years. So you could get all the lobbyists together around the table and say, growth has been so strong, we can actually survive a fundamental tax reform. That is not the world today.
Right. Okay. All right. We are closing in at the end of the time. So I'll have you answer, and we'll go from Doug to all the way down to my right. Are there any black swan events you're concerned about, like anything keeping you up at night, or what's the one thing that you're most excited about for 2018? quite a difference there.
Yeah, well, we have, if North Korea sends a nuclear missile into Japan, that would be to me a black swan event. We have no idea what the world reaction to that would be. In terms of things that are exciting, this is a pure economist's answer. This is why you don't go to economist cocktail parties. But if you actually get the global central banks all to attempt to return to normal monetary policy, then you can actually hold your legislatures to their responsibility to manage fiscal issues responsibly. And we're coming close to the point where that's going to happen.
Okay. David?
I would agree with Doug. This personal is a question, right? North Korea, the world environment, how that affects money, trade, gas prices. You know, gas goes up 50 cents because of a hurricane. What happens if you have a war or a nuclear event? Could be catastrophic. For 2018, what I'm most hopeful for, was that the question, is the recruiting class at the University of Kentucky basketball team. And Coach Cal has the #1 class coming in again, and that's where I went to school. So that's all I got tonight.
Sean?
I mean, on the black swan thing, in my presentations this year, right, it's I think to the degree that there's an economic black swan, you know, we joke that, you know, Janet Yellen's job was now to have a shrink ray and bring everything to bear to try to stop that from happening, because I think to the degree, you know, there's so much debt, there's so much trouble right now. If you know, lose a hold of the thing, I think it is so bad that, you know, we just can't let it happen. So I think, John, you talked about that. I just reread your book, and you talked about a little bit with John Malden and some of those things about, you know, if this really comes unraveled, it really comes unraveled. So I don't think we even need to worry about that, because you can't plan for it, you can't do anything about it.
Okay.
And I think it's decades off, personally.
Okay.
And, you know, I think the thing that, I don't know, hopeful is the right word, but I think we're going to have a pretty stable, you know, we're going to have more of this. It's like Japan for the last 30 years. You go to Tokyo, you know, things are still going. It's more and more debt. It's not economically good, but it feels all right. We're coming out and having great dinners, and we're having fun, and I think that's going to continue. I don't think we're going to see anything like we all experienced in 2008.
Okay. Sarah?
Goodness, you guys are talking global war, and I just, what I'm most excited about is totally different. I think we look at, like, when you do a real estate transaction, how many times you have to actually enter the address of the home, and especially in California, we have like 13 MLSs here, and so we are really trying to solve for the problem of smoothing that out for the practitioner, where they can enter it one time and we'll shoot it out and make that easier for you, and all the way through the transaction, and hopefully you only have to enter the address one time and it'll kind of follow you through. So I think there's a lot of things we can do from a data standpoint to kind of make all your platforms talk to each other more effectively and efficiently for you.
Okay. Hey, a breath of fresh air. Yay!
No more economic talk.
We should have had her go last.
We should have had her go last.
Yeah. So, and on a bright note, from the concern thing, I'm a little worried about the stock market and the impact that would have on the pension funds, who are now no longer unfunded pension liabilities. People are actually asking for their cash because there's a lot of retirement going on. So that scares me. I don't know how that plays out. On a more positive note, I mean, we talked about some of this disruption and big data and everything Zillow's doing. I find that exhilarating. I mean, that's changing our business. It's asking us to be smarter and quicker. I don't think 5 months is the new normal on the MLS anymore. I think it's more like 2.5, because you can sell your home in an afternoon, where it used to take you 30 days just to get the open house done. I think that's exciting, and so I'm looking forward to more of that and seeing who the winners and losers are next year.
I'll wrap up with the same thing I've said every year, probably for 10 years. I would like for the next year for every elected official to not be a Democrat, not be a Republican, but be an American.
Bruce?
Yes.
So I want to say, of all the places I get to go, this is the third time you've invited me back. Thank you. And I know that I can speak for everybody up here tonight, that there's not, you should have been born in Kentucky because there's not a finer gentleman in the world than you, and you make everybody feel great up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you guys very much. Well, it's time to say goodnight. Thank you for participating in another great event. Thank you for the panel. It was great answers. It's so much fun preparing, and when I thought it was completely done, I made a printout of it, and anything that you see written now is changes that came from a hotel room an hour before I got into the, I have so much respect for who's here that I'm trying to get the best questions so we can get the most information. But we could have stayed here for a few more hours, but we don't have that time. So join us again next year. We will do it again. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.